So it's going to be helpful for me to walk you through why you need to do things in terms of SEO or organic search. I think it's going to help to walk through the history of search engines and how we got to where we are today. So right there at the top, SEO is the act of adjusting your site and online presence to better position your domain in search results. So we're talking about your domain, your actual URL, because that's, at the end of the day, that is what ranks. So I mentioned before, in Shopify, if I have my theme, in 2 years from now, you redo your theme. If I redo the skin of my website, my ranking's probably not going to change. It's the URL itself that gets that credit for certain rankings. So back in the 1990s, search engines, they would typically just look for keywords. And so there was search engines in maybe 94, 95, 96 that if I was looking for outdoor equipment, it would just find websites that had the word outdoor equipment on it, and then it would rank me. But enterprising people learned pretty quickly that ranking high in search engines meant real money. So they found ways to game those systems. They would use the word outdoor equipment 100 times on a page. They would make the background white, and they would put the word outdoor equipment in the footer, also colored white, so you couldn't really see it, but it was all over the page a bunch of times. So it became very spammy. And so there was a time where when search engines first came out, that they were very useful. Then there was a few years that they became very not useful because it was so easy to game those systems. So it's kind of where Google came along, and they invented the referential search engine. And so when I say the referential search engine, what do I mean by that? Well, what ended up happening is Google found a way to make the value of your domain only as important as the number of inbound links that your domain was getting. And so to put that metaphorically, if I'm Amazon.com and I have no links from other websites coming into me, then why would Google think I'm useful? But what actually happens is Amazon has tons of inbound links. There's tons of people from social media and YouTube and other websites and blogs and forums that are always linking to Amazon products. So now Google says, okay, there's a lot of people referring to this domain. There's a lot of referential traffic to this domain. So it must be valuable in some way. And so it's almost like high school, where the coolest kids, there's a lot of people talking about them. And so just by reference, I can say, okay, if all of these kids keep talking about these kids, then these kids must be the coolest ones, right? And so the same kind of applies for search engines, where, okay, I've got all these other peripheral domains, and they continue referring to these handful, keep referring to Google and Amazon and all these other ones, then these ones must be the most valuable. And so that switch from just keywords to a referential search engine, and keywords are certainly important as well, but what's going to get your domain in the long term, the best ranking, is to have your domain be referred to often, to be talked about, to have value. And just by simply having a lot of inbound links, there must be value to your domain. It just has to be true. So, and nowadays, search engines have an extremely complex algorithm. And so you don't know what it is, I don't know what it is. If we did, we'd be able to game the system. And so the algorithms that these search engines use, they're always changing. They're always changing what's the most valuable, what's the formula that goes into it. And so now they put a lot of importance on how mobile usable is your website. How fast does it load? The landing page experience. Do users, when they come onto your page, do they leave really quickly or do they stay for a long time? And how is the relevance of your landing page compared to the keywords that you put forth, like we were talking about in the last section on your product page? So there's a whole mix of things. And so basically, you can study the search engines all day long, but basically what you need to know is, if you just make it good, if you make your website something that somebody wants to look at, and you have good information and it loads quickly and it's easy to navigate, you're 90% of the way there. You don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of this stuff. And so that's what I want you to focus on, is just make a website that's worth looking at, and all this stuff is going to fall into place. It really will. So now let's talk about how search engines actually find your site. So there's something called crawlers. So crawlers, there's literally servers all over the world where there are giant crawlers, we call them, or spiders, that try to go through every link that exists on the internet. And so they're bouncing around the internet endlessly for zillions and zillions of links, and they're trying to discover everything that's out there. So in essence, if there is a link to a domain that you just put up anywhere on the internet, that links to your website, eventually they will find you. Eventually the crawlers will locate your website, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So, it's a good thing because no matter what you do, eventually Google's going to know you exist. But it's a bad thing because you don't want the crawlers and you don't want the search engines and you don't want Google or Bing or whoever finding your website incidentally or accidentally. You want them to find your page in the way that you want them to find it. So these crawlers, they want to know what the home page is. They want to know what the collection pages are. They want to know what the product pages are and have kind of the family tree kind of, structure to your website. And so how do I make sure that Google doesn't just land on a product page and then have to figure out what the website is and what the hierarchy is? Well, I submit something called a sitemap. And so on your own Shopify page, you can just type in your URL and go /sitemap.xml. And there's literally it's a map. It's a map of the website. It's a map of the hierarchy of your website that we submit to Google in order for Google to know what our website is supposed to look like. And so we're going to talk about that in a little bit, and we'll go into sitemaps and go into Google Search Console, which are all things that you're going to need to know about. But basically, Google's crawling the whole internet, and they're trying to find everything, and they're seeing who's referring to who. And so the best way that you can, format yourself is to have good content, and it's to submit a sitemap to Google through Google Search Console. We'll walk through that in a second. And to make sure that nothing on your website is spammy or scammy or anything that you present actually is. You also shouldn't have any broken links. Don't have broken links on anything. So I'll take you real quick to a sitemap and what one looks like. So right here, this is wish.com. Wish.com is probably the most famous drop shipping website out there. And you've probably heard of Wish. And if you haven't, maybe go check it out. But so this right here is what a sitemap looks like. So this is an XML sitemap, and you can, click through the different directories. And so you can see that there's a browse page, stores HTML sitemap. I don't know what their organization is to their website, but this is what they submit to Google probably every single day. And you're going to have a sitemap just like that for your Shopify store. So if you already have one set up, do that. Go to /sitemap.xml and you'll find yours as well. So how do search engines grade your website? So I've got kind of a mock rubric here, if you will, similar to something that you'd find in grade school. So this isn't, like I mentioned before, no one knows the formula for the search engines. No one knows exactly what Google has at 10%, at 20%, at 50%. But here's a general rule. And if you stick to this, you'll probably rank pretty well over time. So the biggest chunk of your ranking in search results, the biggest chunk of your potential to rank is the trustworthiness or the popularity of your site. So you'll see that on the right side of the slide. So basically, it's what I was talking about before. That's the referential search engine. So if you have a lot of links coming inbound to you, so people on forums are really talking about your products, and you've got influencers, and you've got all these different people that keep posting links to your website, then over time, that's going to do well for your ranking. That's going to improve the authority of your domain. And we've also got at 20% here, we've got relevance to query. So that's obviously really important as well. So if I have a page that's based around athletic equipment and someone searches for athletic equipment, those are going to match up well. But if my page is something completely different or someone's query is completely different, they're not ever going to show up for one another. So relevance to query is a big part of ranking for what you want to rank for. And the final one is the quality of site or your page. And so since you've chosen to be on Shopify, that's not going to be as much of an issue for you. They're looking for mobile friendliness. They're looking for how quick you load, things like that. And since you chose Shopify, that's not really going to be an issue for you. So right there on the bottom, imagine each aspect of the search algorithm has a weight, and every site in the index is graded on each aspect. So the highest grade is ranked number 1, the second highest number 2, etc. That's a simplified version of it, but really, consider it that way. For one given search term, whoever has the highest mixture of trustworthiness, quality of site, and relevance to query, they get to be number 1, with the biggest piece being the popularity of your website. So you can get a popular website, you got a really good chance at ranking. So let's talk about that a little bit. So what impacts the trustworthiness or the popularity of your website? Inbound links is the single most important one. I talked about that. You got a lot of forum posts, you've got websites talking about you, you've got blogs, you've got CNET, you got these things linking to your products. That's going to really improve the overall reference amount or the referential quality of your website. NAP, name, address, place. Google, you'll do that using Google My Business. So even if you aren't trying to sell physically somewhere, I highly recommend getting a Google My Business account, and you're going to link that to your domain. And that's how Google can prove that you exist. Because that's a real problem for Google, is websites that don't actually exist. So that'll actually go a long way in proving that you are what you say that you are. Internal links is a good one too. So don't have broken internal links or endlessly looping. So let's say you click on a product page and then you click something and then that takes you back to the home page, and then you click the product page, you click on that button again, it takes you back to the home page. Be careful on loops. Be careful on 404 errors. So 404 errors are not good, especially when it comes to, let's say, off your menu, you got a few menu items and you got all your different products, and you got your high dollar products and your low dollar products, and let's say you have a collection for high quality products or something like that, and you click that collection, and then it sends you to a 404 error right off of your menu. That's really, really bad. So you have to look out for broken links, especially broken links that you directly link to on your own navigation, because it's a warning sign for Google. And the last one is outbound links. So Google wants your website to be in the conversation. They want your website to be part of the ecosystem of this referential search engine. So one of the ways that they know you exist is if you're linking out to other people. So you got links linking to your website's linking out to other websites, and there's this full conversation going. Outbound links actually are a good thing in terms of getting yourself to rank. Another piece of this is the web page relevance to the query. We talked about that on the rubric. So the site content, that's going to be the biggest one. It's just what's on your pages. So talk about things that are relevant to your industry. Talk about things that are relevant to what you're trying to sell. And the other one is meta content. So that's what I was showing you on the product page. That's the title. That's the description. And so that's what you're actually putting directly on the search engines for people to click through to. So here's another pro tip for you. It's called relative click-through rate. Relative click-through rate. So let's say my result in a given search, I'm in 5th place. And so my 5th place result is getting clicked on an average of 2%. Let's say 2% for my 5th place result. And the 6th place result right below me, he's getting clicked on 5% of the time. So that's a big difference. I'm higher than his result, so I should be getting clicked on more often, but the result below me is getting clicked on more often. So that tells Google right off, they don't have to know anything else. They have to know, but all they know right off the bat is your relative click-through rate, my relative click-through rate is too low, and so they're probably going to switch our positions eventually. And if they keep getting a good click-through rate, that person that just passed us, then they'll probably make their way to the top. The relative click-through rate means that when people are on the Google search results page, they're liking whatever it is that's being shown there. Let's look at the quality of your site. We touched on this a little bit, but your internal linking structure. Have a healthy hierarchy. Homepage, collection page, product page. Homepage, blog posts, right? And so you have this family tree looking thing. You really don't want things that are bouncing homepage straight to product page, like right off your menu, but then other menu items that go homepage straight to collection, straight to product page, because then you start getting jumps in the flow. So Google likes a healthy flow because they can read that. And again, it's like a map. That's why it's called site maps. They want to have a clear way to read your website that makes sense to these crawlers so that it can then present this information to searchers later on. So just be compliant. The other one is simply content quality. So a lot of people, when I say SEO content quality, they think, okay, so I need to make sure that my keywords are relevant to what is on the search engines. So I need to stuff the keywords all over my page. It's really not true. Google's going to give you a whole lot more benefit for having human-like content on your page. So what I'm saying is just write it like you're talking to somebody. Anything that you're going to write on your website, don't write anything, don't stuff keywords, don't do anything like that, just act natural. So the algorithm has got far enough at this point that it knows natural speech compared to keyword stuffing, compared to something that looks like it's been taken from an AI, things like that. So just when you're making your entire website, just write it yourself as if you were trying to explain it to someone you just met.